This week it's all about phobias, fuel pricing, jab or job, and the Ave Maria. Welcome to Prime Group Kaleidoscope with me, Savithri Rodrigo. Our backdrop this week features the Koggala Lake, which has 10 islands, some inhabited but some not, and one of which was where the story of Martin Wickramasinghe's Madolduwa was spun.
Welcome to 88 Residence Kathaduwa. Invest just 3 million and own your dream home. Pay 25% in 2.5 years, 55% at the handover with zero interest. Prices starting from 14.5 million. 0710 888 444. 88 Residence, Prime Group.
Welcome to Snapshot and a quick look at the week that was. The Department of Census and Statistics says Sri Lanka's second quarter economic growth surged to 12.3%. Sri Lanka's trade deficit tops 5.5 billion in August. The trade balance by end August is higher by nearly $2 billion from 1 year ago. Robust imports are persisting despite restrictions and forex issues. Imports are up by 31% to $13.4 billion. Animal agriculture is responsible for about 20 to 30% of global greenhouse gas emissions, compared to the transportation industry's 14.5%. A 24-year-old Turkish woman is the world's tallest living woman at 7 feet 0.7 inches. And in a first for Sri Lanka, a 31-year-old mother has had sextuplets, 3 boys and 3 girls. Up next on our news capsule, the legality of the no jab, no job rule and the futility of band-aid treatment for fuel pricing. Welcome, you're watching Prime Group Kaleidoscope and this is our news capsule. Global commodity prices are rising as the world is emerging from the pandemic. Vaccine rollouts mean markets are opening up, which also means energy demand is rising. So what does this rising energy demand, with oil prices at record highs, mean for Sri Lanka, which is continuing to see imports climbing higher? Economist and co-founder of the Centre for Smart Future, Anushka Vijayasinghe, answers the questions.
This means that Sri Lanka will face higher import bills of commodities across the board, whether it's in certain cereals or fuel or building materials like steel. Already we have seen over the last few months commodity import bills for Sri Lanka rise quite a bit. This makes Sri Lanka's terms of trade ratio deteriorate, meaning that the prices of imports Sri Lanka is paying for are rising faster than the prices of exports that Sri Lanka is selling. The sharp increase in oil prices will be the biggest impact on the import bill side. Global oil prices are now at their highest levels in 3 years, over $80 a barrel. So it won't be sustainable to artificially keep domestic fuel prices below these global market prices. They will necessarily have to move, and that will increase cost of living further. And ideally, these prices should move under a fuel pricing formula so that individuals, households, and businesses can have some predictability and make steady adjustments rather than face sudden rude shocks.
This was a relatively short week at the Colombo stock market. The all share price index moved up by 2.6% and the average daily turnover in this shortened work week was 3.5 billion rupees. WTI oil continued to climb upwards to near all-time highs, trading firmly above $83 per barrel as the energy supply crunch continued across the globe. Gold advanced slightly to $1,781 per ounce, supported by a weaker dollar and the lower US Treasury yield. In countries like the United States, there is legislation that mandates large-scale employers to require employees to be vaccinated mandatorily. Sri Lanka does not have any such legislative direction to date. So then, can an employer introduce a no jab, no job rule? Can he basically fire those who refuse to get vaccinated? I posed these questions to partner at Nithya Partners Nirusha Ranjit Kumar Ratnatunga, and here's what she said.
An employer can terminate on grounds of discipline for justifiable grounds with the consent of the Commissioner of Labour and with the consent of the employee, of course. Now it remains to be seen whether being unvaccinated or refusing to take a vaccine will fall within any of these grounds. The two grounds that it could potentially fall into are, of course, discipline and justifiable grounds, and it remains to be seen whether a court would accept whether being unvaccinated falls within a reason to terminate on those grounds. What then could an employer do in the private sector? An employer would need to be creative. They would need to incentivize their employees, incentivize them through the offering of monetary rewards for being vaccinated. They should maintain a steady stream of information, a consistent and steady stream of information about the benefits of being vaccinated. They could also facilitate the vaccination by giving time off to go and get the vaccine, providing transport, and even giving time off to recover from the side effects. And finally, they could adopt a more cohesive approach where all the employers band together and lobby the National Institute for Occupational Health and Safety to advise the government on the requirement for a legislative direction to make it mandatory for employees to be vaccinated in order to report for work.
When you have to tie the knot, don't let anything stop you. A couple in Kerala braved the floods and rowed their way in a large aluminium pot to their wedding venue.
Welcome to 88 Residence Kathadua. Invest just 3 million and own your dream home. Pay 25% in 2.5 years, 55% at the handover with zero interest. Prices starting from 14.5 million. 0710 888 444. 88 Residence, Prime Group.
Next up, phobias are real, says Amande Caldera. That's on Srilanka Live. Let's talk.
We are here to better your lives and champion your every goal. With 12 billion rupees worth of customer benefits in 2020 and a life insurance fund worth over 100 billion rupees, our strength is your strength. You focus on your goals. We will take care of the risks. Srilanka Life.
As human beings, we are all frightened of something or another. But when that fear becomes extreme, where a person experiences absolute trauma, it's not about being dramatic or exaggerating. Studies indicate that 3 to 15% of people in the world suffer from a lifetime prevalence of phobias, with the most common being associated with animals or heights. I am ophidiphobic and I can't enlighten you as I can't even say the word. There are thousands out there like me with about 400 classified phobias. These people are phobic about various things from cockroaches to books, fish to butterflies, open spaces to enclosed spaces, flying, storms, needles, riding a car, or even peanut butter and clocks. On Srilanka Life, Let's Talk today is Amande Caldera, a researcher, clinical psychologist and lecturer working at the Faculty of Medicine at the University of Caledonia. She will add some depth to the subject of phobias, which most often we all know little of. Welcome, Amandi, and thank you very much for joining us on Srilanka Life Let's Talk. What is the difference between a fear and a phobia?
A fear is generally a natural emotion. So if we look at the 6 basic emotions that anybody would have, fear comes under it. So along with anger, joy, sadness and disgust and surprise, fear does also fall into a natural emotion. So it is that particular emotion that has helped us survive as a species for a long time. If we take a phobia, on the other hand, a phobia is an excessive amount of fear that somebody feels for a particular situation or in response to a particular object. So I would say that's the biggest difference between the two. And also I would add that somebody who has a phobia generally would have an excessive amount of fear in contrast to the actual proportion of fear that person should have to that particular situation or object.
For outsiders looking in on a person with a phobia, it can seem almost trivial and nonsensical. What is it that people should be aware of if someone has a phobia? How should they react?
somebody who is around someone who has a phobia needs to keep in mind that this reaction is not put on, or it's not something to gain attention from. Those are the kind of comments often people with phobias have to endure, and I don't think that's very fair. The reaction or the excessive fear that they feel is very, very real, and it also becomes a very physical reaction after a while. The heart starts pounding, they might start sweating, they might maybe get tongue-tied or not be able to speak. In certain situations, they might even faint. And the person is not able to logically think, okay, this thing or this dog that I'm scared of is not going to bite me. There's no, once the stress reaction sets in, the logical thinking stops or reduces, and this person is not able to make sense of, those kind of arguments that somebody else might say, look, I'm touching the dog, nothing is going to happen to you, he's a very good dog. But somebody who with a phobia of a dog is not able to comprehend that in that stressful situation.
How can someone with a phobia manage it and not let it hamper their daily lives?
In certain situations, people have to intervene with their phobia. In certain situations, it can be managed otherwise. So there are three things that people need to do. First of all, they need to know how to calm themselves down. Learning relaxation techniques and learning how to calm yourself down is very essential for somebody who has a phobia. And the second thing is the person needs to gradually, the person or whoever, the caregivers, let's say if it's a child, they need to gradually start exposing the person to this particular object or situation that they are having this excessive fear towards. For example, let's say they are scared of butterflies again. Maybe this person might start by seeing butterflies through a window, and the person knows that they are secure and the butterfly can't come through. So like that, a gradual exposure needs to be given to the person so that they gain confidence to go into or to come into contact with these phobic situations or objects. So the third thing is actually to start working with your thought patterns. When you are not in a stressful situation, to really think, okay, there are other people who come into contact with butterflies and nothing has ever happened to them. So why am I scared of butterflies? Is this fear, is it necessary? Is it logical that I have so much of fear towards this thing? So it's very important that we do all three things. First of all, we learn how to calm ourselves down. We gradually expose ourselves and also change our thinking patterns and beliefs regarding this object or situation.
Thank you, Amandi, for shedding light on an area that very few people talk of and actually very few people know of, phobias. Thanks so much for joining us on Selico Life. Let's talk. So if you know someone who is phobic about something, it could be the most mundane thing. Please don't ask them to stop this nonsense and just get on with it, or get a grip on yourself, or worse still, if it's a child, ask them to behave and stop being silly. Phobias are real. They are debilitating and the scars are lifelong. Be understanding. Schubert's Ave Maria experienced an angelic transformation recently when Gehan Kure, independent film producer, actor and classical baritone who made his Carnegie Hall solo concert debut in 2019, produced his solo vocal album, Classical and Cool, with Grammy-winning pianist, keyboardist and composer Russell Ferrante and Sri Lanka's own LA-based Grammy-winning bassist, composer, arranger, producer and engineer Hussein Jeffrey to create brand new arrangements for the album, including the Ave Maria. Adding an angelic dose was harpist Gail Lavon. Here's Gehan Kure on the genesis of this Ave Maria.
I was very resistant to a new arrangement of a classical work like Schubert's Ave Maria. But Hussein Jifri, who produced this album, convinced me, no, Gehan, we need to breathe some new life into the old classics. And Steve Weingart, who is a classical pianist himself, but he also, performed, did it. It exceeded my expectations. It just goes to show you that you can put a brand new spin on an old classic while still being true to the classical genre, which you will hear when you listen to this.
Mortis, mortis nostra, nora, mortis nostra.
Prime Group Kaleidoscope will be back next week. Stay healthy and stay safe. And here's our Kaleidoscope takeaway. If there is magic on this planet, it is contained in water. Lorraine Isley.